Imagine you are standing in ancient Rome. The city is on fire. People are screaming. Families are dragging their children into the streets. Smoke is swallowing the sky. And somewhere in the chaos, a man is smiling, but because he planned this. His name was Marcus Licinius Crassus, and by the time the flames died down, he would own another piece of Rome. This is the story of the wealthiest man in the history of the ancient world. A man who, at his peak, possessed a fortune equivalent to the entire annual budget of the Roman Republic. A man who owned silver mines, armies, politicians and slaves, who turned disaster into profit and power. This story about what happens when someone understands wealth at a level most people never reach, and what happens when he forgets the one rule that matters more than all the others. Welcome to the Seventh Vault. The secrets have been waiting. Marcus was not born rich. He was born into wealth, but it was taken from him.
When he was a young man, Rome was torn apart by civil war.
The general Lucius Cornelius Sulla and the populist Gaius Marius waged brutal campaigns for control of the Republic. Crassus's father, a respected senator, chose the wrong side. He was killed. His estate was seized. His family was destroyed. Crassus was left with almost nothing. Most men in his position would have accepted their fate, mourned, faded into obscurity. Crassus did something different. He studied what had happened to understand power, real power. He understood that in Rome, everything had a price, and the man who controlled the price of everything controlled Rome itself. His first great wealth machine was built on fire. Rome in the 1st century BC was a city of wood and chaos. There were no fire departments, no emergency services. When a building caught fire, it burned, and everything around it burned too. Crassus trained 500 slaves as firefighters. When a fire broke out, his crew would arrive immediately, but they would not start fighting the fire. Not yet. First, Crassus himself would approach the burning building's owner, or the buildings next to it, and make them an offer. Sell me your property, right now, at my price. Panicked, watching their life's work turn to ash, most owners sold, at fractions of the true value. Only then would Crassus's men begin to fight the fire. Then he would rebuild and sell at full market price. This single operation made him one of the wealthiest men in Rome, not through luck, but through systems, leverage, understanding human psychology under pressure. The lesson Crassus understood is this: crisis does not destroy wealth. Crisis transfers wealth from those who panic to those who prepare. He also bought silver mines in Spain, the ancient world's equivalent of owning an oil field. The mines produced wealth around the clock, whether Crassus was awake or asleep. This was passive income, 2,000 years before the term existed. He also understood something that the wealthiest people in history have always understood, that the most valuable asset is skilled people. Crassus purchased slaves, but only those with skills. Architects, accountants, silversmiths, builders, secretaries, he trained and educated them, and then rented their skills out to other wealthy Romans, a human staffing agency, in 70 BC. At his peak, Marcus Crassus had more skilled workers, more property, and more silver than the Roman treasury itself. He was not just rich, he was the economy. But Crassus understood something that purely financial men often miss. Wealth without political power is fragile. A new law, a new general, a new emperor, Any of these things could erase a fortune overnight. He had seen it happen to his own father. So Crassus did what all truly great wealth builders do. He bought influence. He became the greatest political financier Rome had ever seen. He lent money to senators, knowing many could never repay him, which meant he owned their votes. He funded the political campaigns of ambitious young men, collecting favors the way other men collected silver. One of those young men was a broke, indebted aristocrat from an old but ruined family. A man with more charisma than money, more ambition than resources. His name was Julius Caesar. Crassus funded Caesar's early political career. He cleared Caesar's enormous debts. He opened doors that Caesar's talent alone could not have opened. In return, Caesar would become one of the most powerful military commanders in Roman history. And Crassus would have a general in his pocket. This was not friendship. This was investment. Crassus, Caesar, and the general Pompey formed what historians call the First Triumvirate. Three men who, between them, controlled the entire Roman Republic. One man with armies, one man with the people, and one man who owned everything else. And yet, for all his wealth and power, Marcus was not satisfied. Because there was one thing he did not have: military glory. In Rome, a man's legacy was ultimately measured in conquests. Caesar had his armies, Pompey had his victories, Crassus had his gold. And gold, in the eyes of Rome, was the least of the three. He was the richest man in the world, and he felt like he was losing. This is perhaps the most important moment in the story of Marcus. The moment the most financially sophisticated man in the ancient world made a decision driven not by calculation, but by ego. He decided to conquer Parthia, modern-day Iran and Iraq. A vast, powerful empire with a military unlike anything Rome had faced in the West. His advisors warned him. The omens were terrible. A tribune physically blocked his path as he left Rome, cursing him publicly in the streets. Crassus went anyway. He needed glory, and he was willing to risk everything for it. The Battle of Carrhae in 53 BC is considered one of the worst military disasters in Roman history. Crassus led 40,000 Roman soldiers into the Syrian desert against the Parthian cavalry, and was annihilated. The Parthians used a tactic Rome had never encountered. Their mounted archers would feign retreat, drawing Roman infantry forward, then turn and fire, endlessly, relentlessly, in what military historians now call the Parthian shot. 20,000 Romans died. 10,000 were captured. The rest fled. Crassus himself was killed, according to legend, captured alive and executed by having molten gold poured down his throat. A symbolic death. The richest man in the world killed by his own obsession. And he who abandons wisdom in pursuit of glory loses both. 2,000 years later, the story of Marcus Crassus is not a history lesson. It is a mirror. Here was a man who understood wealth creation at a level most people will never reach. He turned crisis into opportunity. He built passive income systems. He invested in people. He understood leverage, influence, and the relationship between money and power. He was, by every financial measure, a genius. And he destroyed himself through the one trap that catches the financially successful more than any other: comparison. He compared himself to Caesar, to Pompey. He measured his worth against where others had arrived. Then he abandoned every principle that had built his empire. The Vault lesson today is this: build your wealth on systems, not on sweat. Turn crisis into opportunity while others panic. Invest in people with skills. Buy influence before you need it. And never make a bet driven by ego rather than evidence. The vault has been opened. If this story gave you something real, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every great vault needs more than one key. Subscribe to the Seventh Vault, because the next door opens soon, and what is behind it will change how you see wealth forever.